actually.
And I just put things up there.
All right, everybody, thank you for coming. I would like to call the meeting to order here at 5:02. If everyone can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming this evening. The first thing that we need to do is to approve the meeting agenda. And we have printed out one here on the table. And I need a motion.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. Okay, 5.0 is community comments. Community comments is an opportunity for the public to address the school board on a school-related item in accordance with the guidelines that are printed at the end of the agenda that can be found on the table over there. And so this evening, we've got one community comments and new ISD 166 staff introductions. Dr. Crandall is gonna.
So actually, I'm not gonna use you so I don't get any names wrong.
Here's our names.
I know one really well. So I know Amanda Beal is one of our new English teachers, and I don't know exactly if you're doing middle school, you're doing middle school. So welcome, Amanda. She was stolen from me. But at the same time, I stole her from myself. So she was to Arbor High School last year. And she's with us this year, so welcome.
We have Mr. Brian Miller. Mr. Brian Miller comes as a graduate from Southbridge and Minnesota Morris, and he is a new middle school social studies teacher.
And we're very fortunate to have an experienced choral instructor coming to us from
Northfield.
Northfield.
Yes.
And so,
Kathy Penning.
Kathy, thank you. So, and welcome. So,
Thank you.
We could brag on her for just a minute. We have instant choir enrollment. We have instant choir. How many do you have in middle school?
I think there's like 16, 17,
And how many in high school?
20.
So we instantly have 36, almost 40 kids.
And we have a couple of students that'll be singing the national anthem tomorrow night at the game, so they're very excited. So,
yes.
yeah.
Oh, yes, you pointed that out to me. Yeah, the other day, Mr. Dorr and I were welcoming students as they came in, and oh, she's singing the national anthem.
Yep. Amen.
So,
Well, welcome.
Yes.
thank you.
And, welcome to the community, welcome to the county, and look forward to hearing great things from all of you. Thanks for coming. All right, 6.0 student highlight. 6.1, Mr. Dorr is going to update us, it says.
Sorry, I didn't have anything on paper.
Okay.
And I will admit that Pam's been asking for 2 weeks, so it's totally my fault.
It says it.
That's why it's in red.
Okay.
Thanks for that, Pam. I appreciate that. I had just have a few numerous. Every once in a while, because I'm built as a middle school, high school guy, I overlook certain things. Our 4th grade class has been kind of recognized by all of the staff. They come in every day at lunch, and we've tried a new way of doing lunch with more kids in the lunchroom at the same time to kind of eliminate some time. And the 4th graders, after they're done every day, it's a contest to see who can clean the tables off. And of all the classes in the school, these 4th graders are amazing. They come and they clean up all the tables when they're done. And all the elementary staff is just really high in that group of kids. And I wanted to be able to recognize them in front of the board and say, they've just done a really good job. I wanted to give them some kudos.
So they clean all the tables, not just
They
their
clean
own?
their section
their
up,
section.
and then they've kind of started to expand, and so we're trying to maybe get them to pass the wealth to some other classes as well. So we're just really impressed with the character of that group of kids. So we want to recognize them. How many 4th graders? We have approximately 20.
It's 27.
Is it 27? Okay.
I have one of those in
So he's probably the one sitting at the table not.
Well, no, he's not at home, so he probably is. It's kind of how it works with my kids.
Yeah. Could be true.
I'll be there as soon as I'm done.
A few other students I want to recognize is specifically, you know, we have student activities going on right now, and lots of kids. We have over like 110, 115 kids right now in an activity of some kind, and we don't have a lot of things accounted for yet, like robotics will be coming up later in the year. One act play. I'm not counting right now Mr. McHugh's graphic arts class, so even without that, we got about 110 kids. I'm really impressed with the seniors on both the volleyball team and the football team because they have new coaches. And oftentimes what will happen is there will be kind of a struggle there to start and kind of a work through. And I'm just really impressed with the maturity of our seniors. And sometimes we get so focused on who's on the floor that we forget about the character building aspect. And our seniors have been fantastic on the court, and they've been fantastic in the hallways. So I'm just really, really impressed with the leadership of our senior class. So, thanks.
And then, Mr. Dorr, I heard that you had to check out the facilities at ESCO. They have, is that where you played last? They have a new field?
Yes. Yes, so we played our last football game, which was a home game that we lost because another team canceled their program. The same thing happened in the southern part of the state, and I have a relationship with the AD there, and I said, would you meet us halfway? And it was kind of a little bit of a fib because they had a 4.5 hour trip, we had 2.5, but I figured close enough. And I know the ESCO athletic director, and so we asked if we could rent that field out, and we met halfway and played at the ESCO field. So it's a good experience for both teams.
That's one of the fields they use for sections as well sometimes.
Yes, it might have been hopefully a prep for being on the field in late fall. Yes. Yep.
Well, that's what we expect.
We'll try to please you, Dan.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, 7.0 is administrative reports. Mitch, you might as well not sit down. 7.1, assistant principal's report. Excuse me, highlight item.
I have two things I'll be brief on. The first, I wanted to publicly thank the entire staff of the school, K-12, teachers, paras, and everybody for getting our year off to a great start. We had construction. I had a brand new teacher who came in, and his first day in his room was the Saturday before we started classes. And I am so impressed with how many teachers who were ready coming to help the teachers who weren't ready. Just really impressed with the staff top to bottom. They've really picked up the slack and done a lot of things I haven't seen before, and morale's good. And so I know I have some staff members here, but to the entire staff, I just want to publicly recognize them. Really good start to the year. So thank you. We also have another new teacher here. Sorry, that was a great subtle cue that I missed. We have Ms. Samantha Savoy, and she is our new high school English teacher and our new counselor, guidance counselor. So, what's that? Half and half. She's doing half and half. So she's doing double duties. Yes. The other part is I've been in contact with our new incoming principal, Megan Myers, and she sent out a little blurb introducing herself, and she wanted me to give it to the board today, and so I thought I'd give it to the board and a few people that were in the audience. We've been kind of talking about what's going on here at school, and she wanted to hit the floor running on Monday.
Great.
And so we've been communicating back and forth, kind of trying to make the transition as easy as possible. And for my staff members that are here, you will get this email in the morning, so, you know. Thanks.
Great, thank you. 7.2 superintendent report, highlight item.
Well, we were fortunate for some of the board members. We were able to do a little tour of the facilities, and things are coming along. So actually, the next board meeting in November here, we'll be able to go through again, though We have not set a date. I think when Megan's on board with Mitch, myself, and Mr. Nelson, will come to decisions as far as kind of more of an open house, celebratory event, so people can walk through the building and see the different highlights that have taken place.
I do think, I'll just add one, I think it would be nice because higher ed and like do like a little publicity thing.
Yes.
So we should have that, so that's just my 2 cents, and have a little reception, whatever. So let's make sure that we, because I want it to be formal and invite media and stuff there to make sure that everyone
Mhm.
knows what happened to make this come to fruition, and so promote ourselves.
Definitely.
Okay, thanks.
Those, yeah, so in the planning, the board will be, keyed in as far as what's going on. We did have a little rough start with the school year, obviously, we had some big staff changes there. Just wanna, thank you to both, and they're both here, I believe, Lori and Pam. They were in our ECFE room, they were in our preschool room. Where else were you guys? Maybe the kindergarten room?
Yes.
They did a little
Like
bit
in the
everything, and that
room,
may be
like-
why the three of us all have colds at the moment. I
why.
spent the day in the preschool room. And so that may be the reason that we have our illness at the moment. But just thank you for all those folks. Mr. Nelson continues to be on top of things with our
No,
with our
Mr.
moving.
Nelson, oh, that's Mr. Nelson.
Mr. Nelson.
Yeah.
Mr. Tom
I was
Nelson.
thinking about what had to happen to you.
He had, same thing, the beginning of the year, just all of a sudden, what? Somebody needs to go where, when, what, how? And so, just making sure that everything took place that needed to take place, so help things go. And then Mr. Dorr has been all over the place. One of the best comments, he says, "Is it always like this at the beginning of the year?"
Yeah. Think how easy next year will be.
No, yeah, it'll be a breeze next year, we hope. So, just thanks to all the folks involved, and as Mitch just reiterated, our staff really did an outstanding job getting things going, stepping up to take care of things, and make sure that we did have a smooth start for our kids. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. 7.3 is goals report.
Regarding that, actually I met with Ms. Bishop today, even discussed some diversity committee items, and I didn't miss it. I just realized right now when I was reading this that I missed it. My alarm went off at 3:30 and go, I know that's for something, I just can't remember what it is. And so the diversity committee met today at 3:30, so I will follow up with Ms. Bishop and get that information, so I apologize publicly regarding that. Viking Way messages are going to be going, and then the big piece as far as culture-wise and such, we're working continually. We have another paraprofessional starting on Monday. We hired one on this Monday. We have another one starting on next Monday, and so we're really trying to make sure that everything is in place to meet the needs of our kids. Obviously, our principal in place as well on Monday, so that's probably the biggest piece as far as working on culture in the building. Academic achievement, we'll be doing at our next board meeting. We'll be having some of the data review, because we'll be presenting to the Grand Portage parents some of the data, and then also looking at our world's best workforce as far as how everything took place last year, where we are at with our goals. And then we continue, obviously we have ADSYS, and the nice thing this year with ADSYS, that's that alternative program, similar to Title I, but at our secondary level, we have one person there this year. So nice consistency will be there for our kids throughout the year.
What does ADSYS stand for?
Alternative Delivery System, instructional system. Support instructional system. The intent of the program is to catch kids so that they don't go into special ed, because it's funded through special ed funding. And then we have Title I. Anishinaabe Academic Center is up. I know that we'll get full staff eventually for them. And so things are in motion as far as our support systems are set for our kids. And then managing, you're gonna be hearing a little bit more about levying, our levy this evening. And our projects are, as you know, through our tour, you're seeing that our projects are coming to completion here, so that'll be nice. And we'll be discussing the ACA as well. Yeah, so we're moving along.
Great. Thank you. Any questions from anybody on the board? All right, 8.0 is consent agenda. Is there anything on the consent agenda you'd like pulled for discussion? If not, I'll need a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. 9.0 discussion action items. 9.1 culinary arts and science room update, ARI. Ryan is here.
Be here.
Yes, I am, yeah. Excuse me, sorry. Thanks for having me back again. It's good to be up here today and kind of go on the tour. For those of you that were able to join us, I think that you can see obviously that those spaces look considerably different than probably the last time you were there, but most definitely much different than 4 months ago. 5 months ago probably when we actually started. But just wanted to give you an update. The science rooms in general are, we'll say, 98% done. They are functioning as student spaces at this point in time. Obviously the intention was to have those done before school started. Didn't quite happen, but we got it to a point that at least they're able to be used for educational purposes at this point. What's left is really minor things, just what we would call punch list items. So there's a little bit of paint touch up, a couple pieces of trim, those sorts of things that are left. But otherwise things seem to be functioning pretty well for the most part. Culinary arts is a little bit further behind. And so right now we are just in general schedule-wise, the contractors indicated that they intend to be done and turn over the space on October 5th to the school, which is a Friday. Tom is, Mr. Nelson, Tom, has indicated that they will do what they can, and the intention is that that following Monday that space would be available for educational purposes. Is that correct, Tom? So with that, in the meantime, so some of the other things that are happening behind the scenes on that space, we made a submittal on behalf of the school district to the Minnesota Department of Health. So one of the intentions of that space is that we would get that qualified as a commercial kitchen, so that opens up your opportunities, and some of those are definitely progressing. We got notification back from the Department of Health that they've approved our plans, which was good since we're almost done. But the inspection for that space is actually scheduled for October 3rd. And so the health department inspector will be up here on October 3rd to review that space, going back to the plans and just make sure that everything has been done in compliance with the plans. And then the school district will have an application they have to submit with a check in order to get their final certificate or permit basically for use as a commercial kitchen. But as soon as that's dropped in the mail, it's technically active, assuming everything goes okay with the inspection, which I have no reason to believe it won't. So that'll kind of happen simultaneously with when it's ready to be turned over to the district. So that's very positive news. Oftentimes they find little things in those reviews, and they had no issues with anything we were doing. They're actually pretty happy. So that's definitely a positive for the project. The other thing that's kind of been an ongoing concern is just budget stuff. And I'm missing a couple of line items here. And so I was hoping to have an updated summary. We gave you a summary of what we projected the overall cost to be kind of before you even awarded the contract. But just to give you a basic update, last time we had met, I indicated that there was some changes that were going on that we weren't sure about pricing and so forth, but we thought that it was going to more or less wash out. Right now, those changes since the last meeting total up to $391 and change. And so going back through the original costs, and there's a couple of placeholder numbers in here, so these aren't 100% accurate. I'm hoping to get that out to you guys next week in an email through Dr. Crandall. But the original total project cost that we had anticipated was basically $3,305,000. Right now, we're at, we made some cost reductions and so forth. We're actually at $3,112,000. So just right around $200,000 below that initial projection. And we have had some unforeseen conditions come up, and we've been able to kind of absorb those by making some other modifications throughout the process. So that original $3,300,000 didn't have any contingency in it. And so we've been able to, even with these unforeseen things, still get that number down about $200,000 from where we originally were. So feel pretty good about that. We just need to get a couple things clarified as far as just some of the owner provided items. So some of the data work and things were done by the district and so forth. So I just need to make sure I get all the parts and pieces in here before I send it out for sure. But feeling pretty good about that, and you know what the mission and directive we were given by the board was, and being able to kind of get there. So but I think that by that October 5th, we should be able to get that whole space turned over in the culinary arts. They're pretty much on track for that, it sounds like. Things are just kind of continuing to roll along there. So,
Great.
yeah, any questions? Good? Perfect.
Great.
Well, that was easy.
ACA.
ACA, yeah.
So we've started some preliminary things with the roof here.
Yeah, you want me to touch on that too, since I'm here?
Please.
Absolutely. So we've been talking off and on for the last probably year actually about the ACA auditorium. We've kind of held back a little bit just to see where the final numbers on this project come in to kind of establish what that budget is. Recently we kind of picked that project back up and have started moving on it through the design process. And so kind of one of our first steps as we really got into that design is we actually brought in an acoustic consultant to come in and do some testing. So just to try and better understand the actual issues and why we're having the problems that we are. So for those of you who aren't familiar, the biggest concern that has been expressed by the district and by staff in that area is the environmental noise. So that's outside noise coming through the building envelope and impacting use of that space. So whether it's rain or birds or airplane noise, those sorts of things. And so with this testing, we basically came in and they brought in what they call it, just a real basic, it's a tapper. Was one item just to do some measurements related to impact noise on the roof, and then also some audible noise. So they brought in a speaker and a speaker system and measuring devices and so forth, and just identified and were able to measure frequencies that we were having issues with, where the structure wasn't stopping that, and just to help us better understand different materials when we put it back together, I guess, address different frequencies of sound differently and deal with impact differently than just sound transmission. And so we're hoping to get that final report back from them in the next day or two that kind of identifies some strategies as far as appropriate materials in order to deal with that sound. The intention is that we've talked pretty extensively about procurement options for that project, and knowing that it's kind of a complicated project. In order to address it, we're probably looking at removing the entire roof assembly to some extent. And so we've actually engaged with a contractor, Carls Anderson Construction, through an NJPA, which is the National Joint Powers Association. So it's basically a state contract for construction. And so basically it's pre-bid construction work that gets done on a unit price basis, and so there's prescribed pricing for everything that they do. So what it does is it allows us to bring a contractor in, bid, meets all the public bid requirements, and get somebody on board to help us through some of the logistics of doing that construction work during that design process, so we can work with the schedule in that space, as well as just general site logistics and functionality and so forth, and figure out when the best time to do it is. We can work through some of the construction methodology up front. So there's things that they can bring to the table from their expertise about materials handling and so forth that just are, I don't know, fuzzy for myself and people in the design end of things. And so the intention is that we're hoping to kind of go forward with construction during the winter actually. Primarily because, one, availability of contractors is better, and we find that we can often get a lot better workforce and push the project through quicker. And because snow is a lot easier to clean up than rain if you don't have a roof on a building. And so, as scary as that is to think about, but, you know, there's always things that can happen, and so the intention is to do that in the winter. And so we've been working with Sue Hennessy on scheduling and
Okay.
kind of keeping
So
her.
we're gonna tear a roof off in October.
I guess.
Yep.
Okay.
And so, and this.
I know it seems crazy.
Yeah, it seems crazy. So, and we have funds to cover this, cause when I hear
Yes.
you talking about this, just makes me nervous, and, you know, that is a collaborative space with the community, with those, and, I mean,
Yeah.
the community's footing the bill, so to speak, cause it's being paid for with bond dollars, but
Yes.
still, I just wanna make sure that we're within our budget, and
Yeah.
I mean, I realize that we have these bond funds, but I just wonder, we'll have to make sure we look at our contracts with those entities to make sure, to renegotiate, because, you know, obviously there's a cost in maintaining this great space that we have
Absolutely.
for the community to use, but it also is costing us a substantial amount of money,
Yeah.
so, okay, so that's gonna happen, that's gonna, and so I'm assuming that space won't.
Sue's at the table representing, obviously.
Okay,
Schedule the playhouse.
how long, what is the time frame then, once beginning to end? I mean, I assume that space will not be usable at that
Correct.
point, correct?
Yeah, we anticipate probably about 3 months.
Okay,
And so, one of the other advantages of doing it this way is that we will have the ability to work through kind of any value engineering or price stuff to make sure we hit that budget with the contractor before any contract is signed or anything. And they're gonna kind of be providing that pricing as we go through the rest of the design process. And it's not, they basically enter this into the system and all the unit prices and stuff, and it kicks out the number. And so the number is the number. There is no messing around with that. And so,
Similar to like when we buy a bus on the state bid.
right,
You know, we want this, and this. The price then is.
Correct.
77,000.
correct.
And that's what we're doing here, we want, and that's, I think, it kicks out the square foot, per square foot type of scenario.
It depends on the material and different things, and so you pay for every board foot of roof insulation, it's X number of dollars and so forth.
So, and I kind of know the answer to this, but way back when we were in dire financial straits, there was discussion, and I'm sure it must still be true, that Sue Hennessy can go after grant dollars to help pay for some components of this upgrade. Because we're not going to, it's not, the hope is to do more than just the roof.
Correct.
Because she climbs a ladder to change lights.
Correct.
She climbs a ladder. And that's just not safe.
So my understanding, Deb, is that when she goes after the grant money, Sue that is, if it's something that's kind of a built-in piece, sometimes it gets a little bit gray. So if it was the roof itself, might be difficult for her because it's a lease space.
Right.
But as far as some of the access systems and things that we're talking about, that could be removed and taken with.
Like a catwalk.
Correct. So those are, it sounds like she's better able to get funds for those type of entities or different parts and pieces as opposed to the building shell, so to speak. Cause that's an asset to them that they
Sure.
could take with. At least that was my understanding of it when we had the conversation with her.
And it depends, is she writing the grant for the playhouse or the grant for the community ed program, which is the school or the ACA.
Correct.
in general.
So there's a lot of moving pieces in there, but.
So I assume there's a way of isolating that area from the rest of the building, so like pipes don't freeze, et cetera.
Yeah, there will be certain things that will have to be done. There will probably be some semblance of temporary heat that will have to be provided. Just because the project takes 3 months doesn't mean it's gonna be open for 3 months
Sure.
either. And so the intention is obviously that portion of it would be to get that done as quick as possible, right? And so the actual roofing itself is probably about a 3-week process. And so there's some, that goes back to the structural side of it too. And obviously it's all weather dependent. I mean, if it's 30 below, it's gonna make some things impossible to do. that's why the intention of not doing it, waiting till February, but trying to get in there and start to do that like the beginning of November, where the weather is still a little bit workable as far as a lot of the roofing systems and so forth.
Okay.
Weather's always a problem
Yeah.
with roofs,
Yes, it is.
and so.
Digging holes.
Correct, yeah, and you can, like you said, I say it half jokingly, but it is a lot easier to clean up the snow. If there is an issue, they can brush it off. If it's raining, you're kinda out of luck, there's not much you can do, so. Yeah, was that anything else on that you, questions?
Great.
Fantastic,
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming on. Okay, 9.2 bond update.
So that information is in your packet. You can see some bills were paid in the security area. Re-roof project is an area that we haven't really done anything with, and so you can see that we've got funds available, and that would be looked at for the project that we just discussed. Bus garage is pretty close to, I don't know if we have anything left in there to do. I think that's totally complete. Vehicle-wise, we still have a few funds left. We may be looking at, there's a need for a trailer. Our trailer, it's kind of interesting. You look at the trailer and it looks fine, but it's the actual underneath. Not even suspend the frame. Yep. And then deferred maintenance. As you can see there, we still have some funds there, but we did have some Northern Door bills that we just did in September. And a lot of the things that were done through F&E, that was back in July. And Science Lab, the majority of that has been taken care of. You can see some payments were taken care of for plumbing and testing, and there'll still be some more items coming in that realm as we finish that project, go through the punch list and such. But the final payment will not be done until we make sure that everything's done
Great.
up to what the standard is. And as you know from past projects, Ryan does an outstanding job through AR to help us with that, and Mr. Nelson as well. So we just, for example, you found that little nub, and if you saw, I don't know if you noticed, but Greg took care of it.
Did he too, while we were standing there?
Yeah, remember when you let him back in the room?
Yeah, I did. He had the thing.
He had the tool to take care of it.
There's a little nub on the epoxy floor that my shoe caught on, and I know I'm not picky. So
Don't worry,
it was
I
a toe
the same.
stubber. It was the same thing, but
I found
but because he did leave, and I wasn't being very observant, so that was taken care of. So it looks great.
Were you wearing lab appropriate shoes?
Probably not.
Steel open-toed shoes.
Really not.
You see her open?
I know, that's what he was just looking at. I know. Yeah.
So we had talked about, maybe I should have brought up when Ryan was here, that there could have been a penalty for not turning over the keys in time.
Yes, I
Yes.
think
And I
still.
know we're working really well with, his name's Greg, right? But it's great, Max Great Construction. And I'm wondering if we could, we're gonna get the keys for October 5th for the culinary arts is what we're hoping.
Yes.
Can we hold that as a potential, if we don't have it by then, we're gonna impose the penalty from prior? I don't know.
Just to share with the entire board, so during the entire process, so for example, right now, I believe you may have asked me or someone asked me, where's Jason now? We're renting space. Well, that's a cost of district that we shouldn't have right now. So we're gonna make sure we get that back. Tom's crew multiple times has had to come in over weekends. That's overtime pay. We're gonna make sure we get that back. We are continuing to rent a big container. One of the containers, by the way, they're renting, one is through us. We're gonna make sure that we get that back. Lori's been keeping track of all the issues that we've had as far as that have cost anything to the district, and so we're gonna definitely make sure that we're not, having to incur those fees because of the fact that they weren't done back in August.
Yeah, because we had a lot of overtime, was my understanding, is there's been a
Yeah.
lot of overtime. Tom
Yeah.
said,
And
shaking his head, yes, so
We,
that's gonna be
yeah.
recouped.
we just received a letter that they were asking for a certain amount of days that Mr. Nelson and I had a quick conversation on today. We'll meet with Ryan and Corey, who's also through AR, and make a decision as far as what would be an appropriate amount of days that we can say, yeah, that's on us. And that would be the abatement and the asbestos, and had to get that taken
Sure.
out, and then the air quality tests came back negative the first time, and so we had to wait a little bit longer. And then that came back as positive, so it's, we were set to go. So we are looking at all those things, yeah, definitely, we'll keep the board,
So clarification, are we
we will be.
imposing, will we be imposing just for our additional expenses, or actually
No, not
imposing
necessarily.
for
We'll-
the?
We'll probably impose something. We need to come to that decision, and that, like I mentioned with Mr. Palmer and Mr. Nelson and I, we're gonna be looking at that, and I'll keep the board informed. I won't just, oh yeah, we'll just do it for this. I'll communicate with the board.
Okay. Great,
Okay.
okay. Any other bond construction related questions? All right, 9.3 to approve the expenditure revenue report, August FY 2018, FY 2019.
And that was supplied to you, Ms. Backeling's here. I don't know if Mr. Yellow had a chance to.
I haven't had a chance to talk with Ms. Backman for a while. Tried to yesterday.
Any highlights, Ms. Backling?
Got here late.
Or points? I mean, we're still pretty early in the year, so.
Well, still, so one of them is the previous fiscal year, one of them is fiscal year 19. The previous fiscal year may still have some changes yet when the auditors get a hold of our books and they can move some stuff around or whatever, but, you know, I feel like we're gonna come out okay with our goals. And then current year is pretty early yet.
Yeah, the first, for example, the next sheet you see, we're gonna start having our regular phase for salary and such, and so you'll start seeing that evident on our sheets.
So I need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
And I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay. Okay, any other discussion? When are the auditors scheduled to be here, Lori? It's October's.
11th and 12th.
Perfect, okay.
But they've already been sending, she's been in communication,
I've
and
already
getting
been
homework.
sending myself
Yeah.
Great. Okay, any other questions? Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. 9.4 is a levy update.
It's approve maximum levy.
Max.
It was just, yeah,
I missed
on
it.
our
I
green,
missed it.
yeah.
That's okay.
And so what we do, so the levy is coming. We'll have a truth and taxation meeting, I believe that's on here, it's the next item. What we recommend to the board is that we approve at this point in time, we approve to move forward with the maximum levy. And what that means is, obviously, we can do the max. If we, at this point in time, stated, we are only gonna levy at this, if this is the max, and we say, well, we're only gonna levy here, then when it comes to truth and taxation, we can't go up to the maximum. We can always go down, we can always under levy is the term there, but we can never go up. And so that's why we say maximum levy. We will like to have and you're gonna be seeing 9.10 is World's Best Workforce and Levy Workshop, so the board can have a little more discussion specific to the levy. So you know at the truth and taxation, so if someone poses a question to the board, you have a little bit more working knowledge specific to the levy. And also why the levy is either going up or down. And so that's why we're asking for approval for maximum levy authority.
And we need a motion, correct? We need to do a motion, okay.
I'll move to approve the highest levy, maximum levy.
I'll second that.
Okay, any other discussion?
How much is it? What is it?
Yeah, is it
Right now,
variable
they,
from year to year, or
it
who
does
sets
vary
that?
from year to year. The last run was 7.4,
7.7.
7.7, increase. Just from a quick look, why increase? And it's a good reason. We have more students. And they continually do runs of the levy. Was the taconite fixed at that run?
I think so.
Okay, because that was one that, just to share with the board, if we had this meeting last week, we'd be saying it was a 12.5 or something along those lines. And that was because the taconite funds were out of whack
That and some of our bond,
in some of our bond.
some of
Okay.
our bond, like our abatement bond that we just did this spring, they put in the first payment. Well, the first payment's not really due until the following fiscal year, so I have them back that out, so it'll come in over the next one.
Yeah, so there are a couple things, and we continue to work with ARC, looking at different items, and we've been emailing back and forth with the state as well in specific levy areas, but at this point, that's where it's at the 7.7 mark increase. We'll
I've
know
had people
more.
ask me to ask these questions. What is ARC?
Oh, Arrowhead Regional Computing Consortium. And so what they do is they help us, they are our area resource for like Infinite Campus. They are our area resource for human resource things, so when I say that, it's really for payroll. Our payroll runs through them. We also do all of our UFARs, so our purchasing and such. So all those codes, they all go through, the ARCS is kind of the hub for that. Say, for example, something happened to Lori,
No.
and we needed someone to help us. ARC would send a person up or two to make sure we would get, our payroll out or purchase orders, processed. Because Pam can do up to a certain point, and then it goes to Lori. Well, we would have somebody to fill that in. And that's what they provide a lot of services along those lines. Yeah, good question though, yeah, because not everybody knows what ARC is.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion by Shirley, seconded by White to set the maximum levy amount. All those in favor, please, you're looking at.
No, I'm just-
Okay, all right, you looked at me like I had it wrong, sorry.
No, I'm just
Sorry.
being attentive.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. Okay, 9.5, to set the date, time, and location for the Truth in Taxation.
Location will be here. The time for truth and taxation has to be at 6 o'clock. And our board meeting in December, what's the date?
The 13th.
So we'd be looking, the proposal here for the board to approve would be December 13th at 6 o'clock. So what we've done is we have our regular board meeting, we pause it, adjourn it, have our truth and taxation, and then reconvene for our regular board meeting. And that's the time when the board sets the official levy.
Sounds good to me.
Yep, 12/13/2018, 6 PM in the JMCC. And that doesn't require any type of board action. We don't have to take a motion, okay. All right, we good on that? We're good?
Yes,
Okay.
we got it set.
All right. 9.6, to review policy number 413, harassment policy.
So this was last revised by MSBA back in 2015. One of the things that we did make a change There had been a blank in the policy as far as who was our human resource officer, and so we put in superintendent. And so that is in your, one of the bigger changes as far as what is in our harassment policy. Otherwise, it talks about the process where the report, so if there was an issue of harassment in our school, student, teacher, the person they report to is the principal, building principal. So the building principal gets the report. If it's harassment, I need to be notified of the report, and then based off of that, then an investigation. And typically, in our scenario, I would then direct the principal to conduct an investigation and keep me informed of the investigation, and at the end of the investigation, then we make the determination of what the consequences would be.
And we as a board
That's what
adopted
about
this last year in
Yes.
September, but
Mhm.
we didn't fill in that blank.
Correct. We missed that.
So when an investigation is conducted, let's say, generic thing, what would the principal, to whom would he be speaking, or how does that?
It all depends, I mean, that's a large gamut. It could be as simplistic as.
Say two teachers.
Say, if it's two teachers, then whoever, obviously, interview both of those teachers, find out if there are any other witnesses, interview those witnesses as well. It could be if it was in a public location where we have camera, review those, that footage. And then, based off of that, if, I'm interviewing teacher A and I get more information, then I would go interview some of those folks. If it's students, same scenario, interview the students, find out, where was it? Once again, if there's camera footage, also, any witnesses, if it was in the classroom, get teacher report, yeah. I mean, it could be, two students start arguing and all of a sudden somebody crosses the line and says a racial slur or a sexual slur or something, derogatory about them in some way, shape, or form. Well, that's harassment. And Mr. Dorr and I have already had these conversations beginning of the year. We just talked about it today too. He just needs to let me know, and then we discuss it, and then we follow up, and okay, at the end, all right, what's our policy say? As far as, when I say that now, I'm actually looking at what their discipline policy say. They did X, where are they at? Have they had prior offenses specific to harassment? If it's their second one, then we go to that column. If it's the first one, we stick with that column. If it's at the level that we need to get law enforcement involved. So they're all dependent on what the situation is.
So a question I had about this, and it applies to the bullying policy also.
Yes.
Is with regards to the reporting procedures, and they both suggest that a harassment or bullying incident should be reported immediately. And immediately is defined in both of these as
Which
being
part are you looking? I know you're in reporting procedures, but is it like A, B, C?
A. It's in A, about 3/4 of the way down.
Thank you.
Just saying it should be reported immediately, and it's similar language in the bullying policy. And in both policies, immediately is specifically defined as being within 24 hours, and in no case after 24 hours. Means as soon as possible, but in no event longer than 24 hours. The bullying definition includes behaviors which contain a pattern or persistent. And I think that's probably the case for harassment as well. So, I realize I'm diving into the minutia here, but it just makes it a little bit hard if you're gonna, if this is gonna get litigated by interested parties and someone says, well, this was reported, it says it's supposed to be reported immediately, within 24 hours. Like, I don't want our hands to be tied by well, you know, this happened 2 weeks ago, or, you know, a pattern doesn't, you know, doesn't develop over a 24-hour period, you know, especially in the case of a bullying scenario. So, so that was just what jumped out at me on these couple of policies in terms of like, you know, that kind of wording and how is that gonna affect our ability to pursue an issue, if that makes sense.
We'll continue, in either way, we'll continue with the investigation. I'm thinking, you know, just an established pattern. If, whatever, you know, student A, we get a report of bullying, harassment. And then 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, a month later, we get student A, and it's the same kind of thing. Now we're starting to see the pattern, so that would be the pattern piece. Because the first time, it may be just, you know, harassment, it could be, you know, at a lower level where it didn't hit harassment and didn't hit bullying because there was no pattern. But now we get additional reports, and now the pattern is now established, and now we're coming to that classification.
Sure, it just seems like, but if that's not initially reported within 24 hours, it just seems like it's sort of like a aggressive statute of limitations, technically. I mean, it doesn't preempt you from pursuing it, but on the same hand, just the way that the policy is written, it just doesn't seem like, it just puts this like pressure on a victim. I think it's like, okay, well, but by the way, you've got to report this immediately or else, you know, forget about it.
And it's
You know
on
what I mean?
everyone too, so if you were a witness and you saw harassment taking place. As all of our staff, they're mandated reporters.
Sure.
So you saw it, it's your obligation to report as an educator.
Sure.
And I know, and to Dan's point, I think, you know, these are MSBA recommended ones, but I think it would be wise to have our attorney review that specific
I can
point that
understand.
Dan is bringing forth is, you know, yeah, this is MSBA's recommendation, but through our attorney's eyes, what is their recommendation? And, take a look at it, cause I agree with you, and our attorney, I'm sure, has experience with other
Oh, yeah.
districts, so I think it's a good I think it's a good question to ask.
I will do that tomorrow.
I mean, I think it's really good to like, we wanna get this stuff addressed as soon as possible, but I also don't want that to backfire and be like, well, we can't because we waited, you know, 3 days instead of 1 day or something, you know, for whatever reason.
Yeah, and kind of the technicality.
It's a technicality.
No, you violated the policy, therefore.
Right.
And we're just reviewing these, and
Yes.
these are already adopted, so.
Yes, these are adopted, so this is not a
So-
first reading, second
Yep,
reading. This is
so
first
just
reading.
review, so,
Mhm.
if there's not anything for the harassment, we can just do 9.7 bullying, just go right into that unless anybody else had any specific items.
Well, I guess the question I should ask first was, is there a particular reason that we're reviewing these right now, or is it just like as,
It's a requirement.
okay,
We review them every year.
okay.
It's presented every year at our, I presented both of these policies along with confidential data, data privacy at our staff meeting at the beginning of the year. I also did it with our bus drivers, so the bus drivers actually got twice. And then Mr. Dorn goes over it because it's in our student handbook with each of the classes as well. And so I'll address also the same in the reporting procedures about the pattern piece.
Are these the only two that require annual review on our part? And at any time, we can review any of our policies at any
Oh,
time.
yeah.
Any board member can ask for review and we can take a look at them. So that's for future reference, if anybody would like to take a look at our policies. Any other questions?
The only other one that kind of is tricky for me is the cyberbullying. I mean, it just seems like, that one just, you know, ideally we'd have a policy which is enforceable, just from a pragmatic standpoint.
It's when it gets turned into us, and another piece that maybe the board members aren't aware of, we have a program, Laura just told me what this stood for, but it's a requirement in the state of Minnesota. Not all states have it, but it's called Gaggle. And so if you're typing an email as a student and you're making there are certain keywords, key phrases that will boom, come up. And then we know that, student A was making this statement in their account, and that comes to light, and that would go to our administrator's desk. That's our tech person gets them, but they just see the warning and then whoop, shift it over to the administrator's desk, and then they take the next step. So we do have that in place as far as if it's one of our devices.
Sure.
Okay. At the same time,
Yeah.
it could get reported to our administration that something else is taking place. One of the things you may have heard, I took a picture of myself naked and I sent it to my friend, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, whatever it happened to be. Now, the interesting thing there is that if a child did that, now the recipient now has child pornography. And by the child sending it, they have broken two laws because they have child pornography on their phone, and they also
Distribution.
Distribution.
It's just called distribution.
distributed child pornography.
Yeah,
And so I'm just thinking of that one just because I know that that's been out in the news, and
yeah.
when I say news, I'm talking about the school, because we're talking school age kids that are doing that, and they just, somebody talks them into, hey, send me a picture of you. And the kids do it thinking it's innocent, and all of a sudden it's rampant through the school, and those types of things. The others would be similar to getting back to harassment, where you should do this to yourself. You should just get lost. You should move. You're fat. You're ugly. You're too tall. You're whatever. Can't believe you wore that to school today, or whatever it happens to be. And it's a nonstop thing. The nice thing is that's always there. They say, the Instagram, all that stuff, it goes away. Well, they can get to it.
Well, and that's the challenge, cause it's, the policy says that stuff is, prohibited when it occurs on school premises, on school district property, or at school functions, blah, 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 so it's like, how do
So
you
that would be-
enforce that,
that would have to
cause
be
it's like,
reported.
how's everything tied?
It's all based on report.
Yeah.
So once it gets reported to us, then we're obligated to investigate, and then
Sure.
we take the next steps.
I would also imagine that's a good segue into our cell phone policy, because not having students holding their phone to take pictures in whatever situation, classroom, locker room, etc., eliminates some of that option.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm thinking of, that's a great point, because what just dawned on me is, and you see it sometimes on those TV shows and such, where something happens, and if you look around, people aren't helping the person who just tripped and fell and spewed everything out. Instead, they're videoing it, or going click, 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 click.
Videotaping
Yeah.
student A have something embarrassing happen,
Exactly.
Yeah.
distributing it to the whole school.
Yeah. They
almost
bumped into
instantaneously.
something, all of a sudden they have spaghetti sauce all over them. Oh, click, click, click. Right, send it out.
And if they don't have their phone all the time to do that, it eliminates, I'm sure there's students who sneak their phones in different ways, but they're amazing like that, these students.
They're quite crafty.
Yeah, but, there are multiple examples, but it's until it gets reported.
And should they report about things happening on personal devices off of campus, does law enforcement get called in?
In
For
certain
their
situations, they can,
Things,
yes.
how they can get
Mhm.
access to stuff?
And it changes because there's a different level of what we can do and
Right.
what they can do, so, if we, probable cause and whatnot, and there's the whole litany of what they need to go through compared to what a school
Yeah,
needs to go through.
the school has very wide-reaching has a lot more abilities than law enforcement does. Law enforcement, their hands are more tied when it has to do with things, is, like you said, there's gotta be, probable cause and things, whereas the school has a lot more ability to kind of look into things and do those sorts of.
Yeah, at the same time,
Yeah.
though, we have good relationship with law enforcement
Yeah.
in Cook County, and so we work side by side in a lot of different things. There's some situations where it makes sense for us to call them to do it versus having us do it. And at the same time, they'll advise us, I advise you, why don't you search them, I will wait out here in the outer office.
Oh. Mysterious world of law enforcement.
Okay, any other discussion or questions on those policies, the harassment policy and the bullying policy? All right, then we will go into 9.8, the cell phone policy report.
And Mr. Dorr's gonna present that for the board.
Yeah, the first 3 weeks have been amazing. It's been night and day. Before I kind of go into specifics, I think Mr. Shirley asked a really good question about the cyberbullying and the phone stuff. And, just last year we had cases where, as an administrator, you have to, if it happens outside of campus, you have to ask yourself the question, is it affecting learning in the building? So a kid's bullying another kid online, not necessarily even happening on your campus, or it is, you don't know. Is it affecting learning in school? Most oftentimes it is, and that's when if it's reported, that's when we come into place. This year, for the first 3 weeks, I have had numerous praise from lots of people about the cell phones. Our lockers were delayed, so that put a little challenge into our enforcement the first couple of weeks, but.
Oh, he's referencing, little cell phone markers. And so what, the nice piece of that is that Mr. Dorr's not asking. He's not, hey, give me your phone. Just lock it up, kind of like would be like if you were bus terminals, airports, you can put something in, take the key and boom. That's the type of scenario of what these are. So he can't just go in and take the phone.
By no means is it perfect yet. That's not. But this is the most consistent our staff has been. They've all gotten on board and they've got after it. You will rarely see a phone. Just yesterday we had a student have a phone and just took it out because one of our clocks wasn't working, wanted to know the time, and the teacher was immediately on it, like, put your phone away. We have 3 to 5 students who are really kind of like not sure that we're going to be consistent and testing waters, and everybody else is in it. And I've had 2 of my biggest naysayers, so to speak, I don't know how else to say it, come to me and go, this is awesome. This is like a good feel. Like, a few students have told me, I'm kind of relieved. I'm kind of relieved that I don't have this pressure to check this and to check this. And I will admit that at the beginning I was worried. My biggest fear or my biggest worry was we're giving them a few minutes to check before we go to lunch. And is this going to blow up on us? Are they going to be in the hallways for 5 to 7 minutes to 10 minutes? Am I going to put pressure on teachers in the halls? And that hasn't happened. That really hasn't happened. We've taken maybe, sorry I don't have the specifics, but I think I've had 9 or 10 phones in the office. And I'm not taking physical possession. We're not getting into power struggles, and they're getting them at the end of the day. And students have not, with a couple of exceptions, students are not fighting that. They're putting it down, they're shutting it off. And I think where we made some mistakes last year is we physically took the phone. And I think that was a mistake, and I think we learned from that. And just the other day, I had a certain individual with their phone. I called home, I said, just want you to know this happened. Mom was like, I thought they weren't supposed to have their phones in school. I'm like, that's why I'm calling you. She's like, thank you very much for letting me know. We'll address it at home. And I've been really happy with our parents. Our parents have been incredibly supportive. And so as a staff, each week we're reminding ourselves to be consistent, to continue to do it, to continue to be vigilant on it, because we know the first 4 to 5 weeks is setting the tone for the rest of the year. And so I do want to impress on the board that we will also need your support, that, you know, you in your position, just like myself in my position, we always hear a lot of naysayers or detractors. That's what happens. We rarely, I mean, and you guys are probably no exception. Hey, nice job. I really appreciate all your time on the board. That's probably not the most common phone call you get. And I just want you to know that the staff has been amazing with it, even to my surprise. And this, I've had students come up to me and say, this is terrific, and I never thought that would happen. So far we're really happy. It's not perfect. We have some kinks to go out, and there are certain situations that we're going to learn from and continue to get better at, but so far so good. If there are specifics that you want, or that you want me to track so you can see it, I want you to know that we did have one case that I find egregious in the first 3 weeks, where people either had a picture or a video taken of them without their permission, and that was handled swiftly and decisively, and but only one. And I know that might sound funny, but we had plenty last year of things of that nature that we had to deal with.
I was reading the nurse's report of everything that she'd done, that sometimes if there's a medical emergency inside a classroom, like a diabetic or a seizure or something, does a nurse also still not get to use a cell phone? I mean, you have to call through the in-house phone, or does somebody come running to the nurse's office, or?
A para who would be maybe with a student with that kind of medical diagnosis, or even a teacher, or even the nurse could use their phone. We're telling our staff we want to minimize phone use to a minimum.
Okay.
However, we also know that they're adults, and that there are times when that is appropriate to use the phone. That would be an appropriate use of the phone. Sometimes there are some kids who need special attention during the day and they don't have time to get a hold of me a different way. And so they might use their phone if, say, they're walking in the hallway or something of that nature. So.
Do we have any type of process or thoughts on people bringing their own devices in laptops and things? Because that's the
Yes, we
workaround.
do.
Because that's the workaround to the cell phone thing. You know about that?
Yeah, so,
Okay.
glad you brought that up, actually.
They're smart kids. They
Oh,
figure out how to
incredibly
use
inventive.
it without their phone. When they say, oh, here's my MacBook Pro. I
Right,
need this.
right now, most of the devices that a student brings in are blocked off our internet.
Okay.
So they're entirely blocked.
Yeah,
Now, I've been doing some reading, and it's interesting. I should bring the article, but the Ivy League schools are getting together now and discussing that, because they're finding that their students are sitting in the big lecture halls paying $200,000 a year, and their kids are on ESPN.com while their teachers are lecturing, and so they are also looking at the same things. And so we're trying to steal some of the good ideas that other schools are starting to address. But yeah, right now our tech coordinator has the internet blocked off of personal devices.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, I couldn't get out, I brought up my Lake Superior School District laptop the other day. Like, yeah, the first thing it says, you need a network password.
Well, now, is that at different times of days or different locations? Cause like this is my computer and I'm able to connect to.
It's all during the school day.
It's a school day. There's a public network that you can sign on to, at
Yes.
least when I'm here at 5 o'clock. Okay,
You can't get into our system
sure.
unless you have the staff.
But the
access.
public one is not available. Cause that's what
I'm
I'm on. I'm not plugged
During
in.
the day, it's not available. I can't get on it during the day.
No, okay.
Why are you trying to get on it with your personal device during the day, Pam?
Quality control purposes.
Yeah, quality
Testing.
control. Cause it gets very quiet in the office, we need some music in there.
All right, any other questions regarding, cell phone policy?
Yeah, I mean, it seems, I don't know what precipitated having this on the agenda, but it might be nice to get another update, you know, in another period of time.
In a few months,
Yeah.
after the first of the year?
Yeah.
Just throwing it out there,
Sure.
just have a mid-year report, how it's been going.
I'll
Yeah,
track,
parents.
I'll track some things for you too.
Yeah.
After parent-teacher conferences, how's
Yes.
it going for these parents, you know, it's like, you don't get to call your child and say, change of plan. Oh, I do have a thing though. Wait, do we have something about communications on here tonight?
No.
Okay,
You can add it to the October meeting if you'd like.
no, I wanna talk about it right now. The other day, I wanted to call, I can't remember why now. I called the school, I needed to talk to somebody about something, no emergencies, no students, oh, I know, I got a phone call, and I wanted some clarification about something that was heard through the grapevine, and of course I got the phone call from a constituent, or not even a constituent, but anyway. So I tried to I said I would get back to you, I tried to find out if this is even true. So I called the district office, and I get a voicemail, punch this, or, you know, like, leave a message. But no, I need to do this sooner, I have things to do, I have to get an answer so I can move on. I tried the administrative, same thing, leave a message. Now, if I were a parent, and I was on my way, or somebody's on the way to Duluth in the ambulance, why didn't somebody in the high school office, we have 2 secretaries, why wasn't there somebody answering the phone?
I
The
would
2
say,
secretaries.
I would say if you called both numbers and you didn't get a phone call, and I'm assuming you didn't call on Sunday.
No, this was,
During the day.
during the school
just
day.
teased you.
If you're not getting anyone, it's probably because.
They know it's you.
They're on the phone, because I
Yeah,
call
tell her
multiple
you
times,
got it.
actually, I punch specifically
Yeah,
to
if
Pam's
we're-
number, and
yeah,
if she's on the
If we're on
phone,
the phone, it'll go to our voicemail.
it goes right to the voicemail.
Well,
And you probably just got us during one of those crunches where,
right, but
they were
the
on
point
phone.
was, what if it were an emergency? What does a parent do? Just like, if you're freaking out because, say, oh, somebody shoots himself through the kneecap with a framing nail, this has happened. And you have this much chance of getting your cell phone to work because the person is 1.5 miles off the main highway.
you gotta leave a message
It's not real comforting.
though. I know.
There's, yeah, I mean, the scenarios could be many scenarios of, if that happens in the boundary riders, you have no cell phone.
Yeah, but if you're on a, well, that's
But
a
if
different
you,
thing.
if you wanna get a
But
message
if
through,
you
is
want,
what
if you
your
get,
point
if you
is.
get through, you leave a message.
Mhm.
Yeah, we.
The school's
return
open,
messages
if the
all
school's
time.
open,
We'll get them
they're gonna
immediately.
get the message.
I will say, I was calling Pam yesterday morning and I got her voicemail once and she was pretty quick.
I try to.
Even though she's been apparently trying to get her
Or you call
personal
back.
devices.
But we do.
Right,
we
no, but
try
I
to
was just
try.
thinking about in the scenario, if there is a medical, probably a medical emergency,
Yeah.
and a parent needs to get in, or a guardian needs to get in and let something know, I mean, these things happen. Just leaving a message isn't real satisfying.
No, it's not, but I would venture to guess that if you'd called right back, you probably would've got through the 3rd time, or the 4th time. You're gonna get through.
Right.
Or there's something wrong with the system,
Right, but,
which we can't control.
in the event
But
of.
we can't just have one little line specifically just for emergencies.
Well,
Well, the others is, that could be busy.
That could be busy at that time, because someone else had an emergency.
So, anyway, it was a concern, not that
Okay.
I'm expecting anything like this, but there's no but I could see like, well, there's no cell phones now. So that's,
So if you know little Johnny's schedule and you know he's in Maggie Frederick's class right now, maybe you have other, I mean, you can continue down the staff directory too.
yeah, I don't have anybody in
Theoretically, there's a
school.
lot of them. Press 5 for the staff directory.
All right. 9.9, to approve student board school representative process. Excuse me.
So we had a discussion at the last board
Yeah.
meeting, handed information out to you. So at this point, is the board interested in having a student representative or more, and I know I'm looking at Member White, or is it more that we just want student voice heard at our meeting, and if it's a report from the student councils, or do we wanna have, student A, you're sitting at the table?
When student A sits at the table, they don't have a vote.
No.
Correct. But they.
They have a voice, they don't have a vote.
Mitch Dorff would like to say something.
Yeah.
I just say that when I was in high school, we did have a student representative. And so what we did then is they were expected to be here for the first 45 minutes. And so then the board agenda was adjusted as such. So they would probably sit through the community comments, and then maybe they would bring students once in a while to do that. And then you would have your principals' reports, and they would be able to hear that and probably have some dialogue with the principals. And then maybe they'd have the student highlight, and once in a while, we'd just give them that ability they would nominate, their peers to be maybe highlighted there instead of administrators choosing students. And they would be there for 35 to 45 minutes, and then we would turn to that person, and we'd say, thank you for serving on the board for us. They would be excused to go, and then the board would carry on with the rest of their duties. And then, students not sitting through your financial things and some other things, and we got better participation that way, because the student knew it wasn't a 3-hour meeting, but it was like 30 minutes, and that's how we did it. So I just want to throw that idea out to you.
I like that, but then the students keep it also, like when we used to do, like board reports, like if we went, that student could give a student report, and we can, I like that. Covers both of them.
So we're talking about the 9.9 to approving this,
Well-
but I think we should, until we have something firm on a piece of paper so I can see what we're approving, I think we should just scratch that. We could continue to talk about it, but.
Yeah. I was gonna say, if we're not ready, because I don't necessarily
I
think
like,
we're
I like
ready
the ideas.
to make.
But I want more ideas, and I
Right.
want it laid out, saying, let's do this. What do you guys think of this? And I'd like to have a little time to think about it, and I can
Right.
see something.
And I agree, and the information that we got, and this was from our last meeting, was in our last board packet, and I don't remember where, I guess it doesn't matter, was it MSBA?
That's from MSBA.
MSBA, so they
Yeah.
really did have a lot of good points on things to consider, making sure you realize that, they don't have the right to vote.
Right.
They will not receive, confidential information. The board receives sometimes confidential information. They would not receive that. So there's definite things that, you'd wanna make sure that we laid out and that the student and we all understood what that process was. But, I do like the idea of, cause we do that with our agendas, we can set them up where you have the stuff on the front end that's more applicable to, and that they may have a voice on, and then, the other things farther down the agenda, and then also we have to think about what should be the process of getting this individual. Advertising for it, doing interviews, how, how.
Voted
Should
on
they
by
be elected
students.
by the students?
Should they be elected, but, yeah, right, and so there's a lot of things to consider on what,
Yeah.
Mhm.
what we wanted. So, how do you wanna proceed then? How do you wanna proceed? Because we've heard a couple different options, we have this information. So, what is our thoughts? Does somebody wanna volunteer to write up some ideas? Do you, I don't know, I'm just wondering what our thought process is, so when we come back in October, so we can move forward. Cause I think we've said several very good ideas here, but what are people thinking of how we should move forward? at
Sound-
the
I'm
superintendent.
just
too.
listening to Mr. Gettle that
Yeah.
you'd like to have some options. I can work with Mr. Dorr, I can connect back with MSBA,
Mhm.
or I should say, I can just really review, because that's what MSBA has for us.
Yeah,
I know that Duluth has them, I can connect with, some of the area superintendents and find out what their model is, how they got people in place, and then I will, get that information up to the board prior to the next meeting, so
Yeah.
we have that.
cause I'm guessing they have basically a job description, kind of like a
Yeah,
thing.
you know, what the
So, or
expectations gonna be
expectations,
for.
and so maybe if we got that, that would help us narrow down
Mhm.
what exactly, you know,
Right.
we think would be good and what, would be valuable for us.
Well, I would like the student to get something out of it, you know, I mean, that it has some value to the student, to the students' population, if they're going to. And maybe they don't wanna have representation.
Well, you really need to see if someone's interested.
Yeah, and it's hard to get here, I mean, there's kids that are
Oh,
off
yeah.
at practice and at games right now, so, and there's other activities going on, so it's a commitment just like anything else, that someone will have to decide that they'll, you
We
know,
could
to
probably
do that.
use then student council or class advisors to, yeah, and then what age student?
Exactly.
I don't know, yeah.
Right, so there's a lot, so, great, if you, Dr. Kanda will get us that information, that will be helpful.
I mean, I think, yeah, and I think the skill could be really valuable to the board to get that perspective about the students. I think it would be valuable to the student body in general to have some, more direct conduit to the board. But I think for the specific student, it could be just a real valuable developmental opportunity, you know, because and hopefully they would have some level of responsibility that would help develop their skills, you know, it's kind of a professional development thing, you know, being at the meeting and, you know, participating to whatever capacity would be, you know, to help them develop skills, and I think that hopefully they would see it as an opportunity to do that, you know, and that would be one of the drivers for interest, you know. And that might be somebody who isn't involved with, you know, the other things that are going on, because that's not their interest, but they're interested maybe in politics or whatever it may be. So. And to that end, I think, and I know we're not talking about that specifically right now, but it was floated last time. I guess I'll wait to hear what you come back with, but I would be inclined to have it be like one student for for a year or something like that, rather than it being like a rotating thing, was thrown out as an idea, just to allow there to be that opportunity for more development. Cause you get more chance to be at the table, you know, takes a little time, so.
Or maybe it could be something like 2 students who rotate, so it's consistently, or it's pretty consistent, but
Right.
they're able to share the
Sure.
role.
Okay, thank you. All right, 9.10, to set workshop date for World's Best Workforce and levy workshop. So we're talking 2 different meetings? Okay,
The levy workshop date, we could do that in sometime in November or even early December, prior to the December 13th board meeting. And that would be looking at the levy and going through that. And at that point, we can actually, you know, maybe even get in a little bit more detail if there are any questions specific to where we're at budget-wise,
okay.
since that's associated with our future budget.
Okay, so, like if we picked December 6th, that's only 1 week before
That would be fine.
is that fine? What are people's schedules? It would.
Is that Thursday?
It's a Thursday, we would do the same time.
Wait, Thursday, November 6th?
December.
Oh, December.
We're gonna do, yeah, I think levy one, that'll be, I don't know if that's easier to set that date, but, so December 6th, Thursday.
Not for me.
Is that fine? Is that fine on your calendar?
I'm guessing it is.
Look, for
I am open.
open? Okay, so December 6th at 5 PM? 5 PM?
This is gonna be
That's gonna be
levy.
the levy one?
Oh, levy.
We'll do that, that's,
Dr.
that's,
Crandall, what would you say for time length on something like that?
Yeah.
An hour?
Hour.
okay.
Deb and I are gonna be here, so an hour and a half. I'm just kidding.
I figured that in.
You know,
All right.
mentally prepared that who you're working with.
All right, so, December 6th, 5 PM. Okay, so now the world's best workforce workshop date, and that's to discuss student data?
Student data.
Okay. When are you thinking for that then?
Sometime in October would be great.
All right, so,
When's our meeting in October?
it's after MEA, so it's the
25th.
25th.
That's in Grand Portage.
Yes.
We could if you, I don't know if that's pushing people though, to do it even before the meeting,
You mean before,
before the.
earlier in the day that, you mean,
We could do it early in the day or prior to the meeting, but that's, I know that might not work, because I know some of you are workers, working.
The later we get into October, the more flexible I am, so, my main, yeah, second half of November, I'm kind of booked up, but I'm pretty available
What's-
anytime.
How long is that meeting gonna take?
Maybe another hour, or with questions, hour and a half.
You're wanting to come earlier or stay later?
I would say come earlier, but.
Well, because
we could always
I-
stay later too, I mean,
well,
that's another option.
Because I'm fine with doing in October, but I wanna be done by 6:30. There's, we have home volleyball games.
but that, oh, we were talking about having it,
Four to
meeting
11,
date
or the meeting date.
earlier, like at 4 o'clock.
Okay, that's fine.
But, I don't know, I mean, I don't know if that would work for everybody or not, because we have to get to Grand Portage
Mhm.
and have the meeting.
Oh,
there.
on the 25th, you're saying?
Yeah, I definitely can't do it earlier, but I can stay later.
So we have, the community discussion is scheduled after regular meeting, right?
Oh, so
We
we're-
decided that.
Yes.
That's right.
So that's not.
Yes, so that won't work.
Yes.
Pick a different date.
That meeting on the 25th in October is not supposed to be about school board minutes, because this is a discussion that the community is expected to have with the school board.
Right, and so we're having our meeting quick, we'll have our.
The meeting's first and then the.
The meeting's first and then the
discussion is set
discussion is
after the
second.
meeting.
Okay, because the parents have a totally different expectation, the community is like, they want to have a real dominant discussion.
So,
So that meeting is not.
Because according to the IPP policies that we.
Right.
Yes.
set,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they're gonna do the
I
school board
believe-
meeting
I
short.
believe what we had decided when we set that date is we're gonna make the meeting quick.
Okay.
right,
Our
so we'll
business
have,
was going to be quick that
Yep.
night, and
Okay.
then,
yep, so we'll have a
focus on
light
discussion.
agenda and do the things that we have to do, and then, do that community discussion, yes, yes.
listen to it, what we had
Yep.
discussed, that's what it was.
Okay.
So that date
Figure
won't
out
work.
where we're having it.
Right.
Yep, so the 25th won't work, so it would have to be a different
We could do
day,
the November meeting.
or we could do the November meeting, which is the 15th.
We could do it after. Or as part of it.
Well, I just wanna make sure, sometimes our meetings go long and we lose it at the end, and we're not as focused. So I would prefer to frankly do that first.
Okay.
And if we can do it early, just because, like I said, sometimes our nights get a little bit late here.
Mhm.
So,
And if we could like, have us, don't have anything on the agenda. Don't do anything that month.
we,
We need a few things.
We do, there are certain things that have to go on there.
Up through 8.0,
Right.
Um,
But hopefully we will have very little in the personnel area.
Well, and if we do that, then we'll have the student data available to us prior
We
to
can
the
get it to you
meeting,
prior.
so we
Okay.
can
Yes.
kind
I'll
of
have it prior to you, so then you
look
can
at
look
it,
at
so we
it.
kind of know what we're looking at,
So you'll be able to.
somewhat anyways.
Yeah.
so am I hearing that we wanna do that at that November meeting?
Yeah,
Is that
that's
what
just
you're
part of
saying?
the meeting.
I would think that.
Do you wanna do a part of the meeting, or do you wanna start
I put
You
it
can't
in
start
the agenda.
sooner.
in
I
the
don't believe
agenda?
I would be able to start earlier.
Okay,
Yeah, we'll
You're
do it
saying
in
you
the
don't wanna do
agenda.
later, I can't do earlier.
okay,
Yeah, earlier
We can
stuff
make
on
it
the
part of the
agenda.
agenda.
okay,
And so you'll have that in your packets.
okay. Great. All right, 9.11, to discuss state identification of middle school.
Alright, so they have a new system. When I say they, I'm referencing the state. And it's through every Student Succeeds Act. And what the state is calling is their North Star system. In the past, you may recall MMR scores. Does that ring any bells with anyone? Multiple measurement
Yeah,
rating.
yeah,
And so and then prior to that, it was annual yearly progress, AYP, remember those?
yeah,
It's now called the North Star system. And they don't look at just reading and math. They look at reading and math for all the different groups. When I say that, you're looking at the majority group. You're looking at all the free and reduced lunch, all the different ethnicities, special education, those are the English language learners. And in ours specifically, for our middle school, we were identified for our free and reduced lunch population. That's who was, they have criteria. And in that, for the middle school, we met it because we were below the consistent attendance rate, just below. And then we were in the reading and math area.
The ball.
For that subgroup of free and reduced lunch. And the area that we received is targeted support and improvement. So what that means, we're not getting money for it. At that level, it's typically done by the school. Actually, I did a little bit more reviewing today, and on Monday, Mitch, is it you guys? I know I'm doing it on Tuesday, but you have a team set, there's a webinar. It is.
Yes. 25th, yeah, that's
Yeah.
Monday, yep.
Yeah, Monday or Tuesday, after school, there's a webinar, get your team together, and they're gonna go through what the process is. There's actually a checklist there. The other component that we have available to us is that the Northeast Service Co-op houses what's called the Center of Excellence. And so we have that individual who will be able to either come to us or we'll go to them. They'll probably have some workshops that, because we're in this targeted support and improvement level, we're eligible to go and help with planning and looking at data in order to help our students get from where they're at to, they want to get up here to proficient, but they're here, and so we want to get them up to proficient.
So it begs the question, we have small elementary class sizes, and our middle school students, most of them, have been through those really small elementary classes, and still they're not meeting proficiency.
Well, they'll be able to do, when I say I'm really talking about our data team and all the educators who are going to be part of that team. At our November meeting, we'll be able to give you the nitty-gritty exactly where we're at, why. We'll go from it reading to what the strands in reading are and where we're doing well, where we're not doing well. And when I say where we're not doing well, we can get down to how are our free and reduced lunch kids doing, how are special ed kids doing, how is the majority of our population. We'll be able to give you that data. So based off of that, referring to you because you're in QComp.
Yeah.
Our QComp goals should be and aligned with what we as a school need to be focusing in on for our kids.
So do you know, was this based on last year's?
It's based on a 3-year
3 years?
average.
Yes.
That was gonna be my question, my next
It's-
question.
It's a 3-year
was,
average.
Gone back so many years.
Yeah.
And then I'd like to see, so 3 years ago, when they were based on, when they were 8th graders, how are those 8th graders that were in that category 3 years ago, how are they
Yeah.
doing now?
Um,
You know, was it just a,
Mhm.
that little bump in the road and we're such a small,
What we'll do is we'll get 3-year data, and so we'll be able to see that.
so.
Yeah,
And look at it
unfortunately-
diagonal versus right on top of each other. So.
Yeah, unfortunately, our middle school has been underperforming for several years. Obviously, this is why we were identified.
They have, and then that was
So-
my question, you know, but
Yeah.
now it seems like our juniors and seniors seem to be doing great. Or maybe not great, but I mean, I think they perform quite well. I mean, and the AP classes that they're taking and
Yeah.
Right.
our graduation rate is
Mhm.
good, and you can't graduate without going through these classes. So I'm just wondering I know, there's gonna be a lot of data that we can look at and kind of try to figure out the why. That's all.
And kind of pinpoint in where it is, who are the kids, what's the group of kids, and if it's math, let's focus on math, if it's, that we're missing certain standards, because we find out that in math, I know math has 5 strands, and if we find out that we're really weak in this strand, well, let's have our math teachers really, I mean, we just did an extensive curriculum. Did we miss the fact that this strand isn't being addressed?
Mhm.
You know, those are things that we, actually, that's part of, Ms. Jensen was here subbing that day, but, our teachers were starting that process already, staff development in the area of math at the elementary level. So
Any
that's
other-
how we got it,
Okay.
it's a 3-year look back average.
And I just wonder, you know, the QOC decided, you know, we decided that we would, change from a reading to a math focus.
Mhm.
So, just making sure that, obviously that'll come up at the next
Yeah,
QOC meeting,
I'll have the information.
which is next week.
Mhm.
Okay.
I can actually get the more specific information by then.
Okay.
For the middle school.
And QOC's Quality Oversight Committee, that's our QComp, that's the group that oversees the QComp program and things. And so, I'm the board member on that committee. Any other questions for Dr. Crandall regarding that? Like he said, we'll get more specific information when we get the data. And then we'll just have
Is there a
to-
time that we're supposed to try to get something accomplished on that?
Yeah, is there not like an official response we have to do?
Do they-
As I mentioned, there's this, no, there's not a response,
Okay.
well, technically.
A checklist.
There's the checklist, we're participating in the webinar. Actually, I participated already in 2 different webinars, just kind of get a little bit more knowledge about what does it mean?
Mhm.
And then that's where I got, these are the, kind of the criteria scores. We're gonna find out on Monday or Tuesday, depending on which webinar we participate in, what our next steps are, what we need to do as a school.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on, 9.12, discuss facility boundary.
And so what actually, and maybe that's a little misleading, but it's really what, we own some property. Football field, and then across, is that called the trail, basically, right, the new trail, actually, right? We own lots. All right, and we have so I'll pass this around. That's where they're developing, you have the A, Ms. Beckham, that's the developing
Those
area?
are the lots that
So,
They're developing where it says, where the A's
okay,
are.
so we're because we've looked at this before, but we're bringing this up again, because I know I've been, Ms. White brought up the fact that the city has approved a plat process, basically for somebody, gonna be building some homes and things. And, Deb just brought up the fact that, hey, maybe we should make sure we look at our boundaries, because we all know in Cook County, sometimes people are not exactly sure where their property is. So,
And then
just-
associated are the aerial shots as well.
So I think it's important, because remember, we've kind of got chunks kind of here and there and everywhere.
That's the list of them.
So it's right here.
So the 3 houses that have been built already are where the A, are on those lots below A?
Oh, they're not on this, Trim, this isn't.
They show.
They are.
Are those, oh, are those the ones? Oh,
These are.
all right.
The ones. Okay.
And it has the lines on it, so you can kind of see they're south and west of our property. The one piece is like directly south and the other 2 are west.
So what is our concern?
Encroachment.
So what do we need to do to figure out if there's encroachment?
When was the last time this stuff was surveyed? Hours were surveyed? Any idea?
I don't know if we have a date on
I mean, the county did a surveyed the county at one point. People lost, and they found out their garage was in somebody's property and things like that. So did they do this property too? I don't-
We can follow up with the county on more specific, I knew we had this information because we looked at that before.
And then I will,
So nobody's built on this side of the Highway 12, the gun fund?
no,
No.
no.
That's.
I'm concerned about the lots up above.
Because
because
we
there
own
was
those
just a-
lots.
Right.
Because there's I heard it on the radio, that,
Somebody's developing that
they're
property.
going to be developing that, they got, it's in the preliminary stages, but they
Right.
got the council's okay to go ahead with it, and it's 6 or 8 houses. And let's make certain that something doesn't get built, and then they come back and say, oh, by the way.
So can we, I mean, I know we're discussing this, and I thought, maybe I didn't hear it, but, so can we ask, who do we ask from the county
Well,
or the city, or?
and I agree, and how do you really know? And this is me not being, I'm not a property expert here. I don't know if any of us here are, but, what do we need to do? I mean, do we need to get it
Well,
surveyed? And
well, I
then there's
do need to
costs,
br-
obviously.
Well, I was offered, a generous offer. Somebody I know has had, has had a lot of this property surveyed within the last 5 years, something like that, and we are welcome to make use of, not to keep the paperwork, but to look at it it was in that area, it was up there where the new development's going to be coming up, to see. I mean, I'm most concerned about the property lines that are adjacent to the public, or the ones we don't own. I mean, those are the lines, so. So I can contact this person and say, yes, we'd like to have them at our disposal to review them and to see, and maybe, but I don't know how I should be, I don't know how to read all this stuff. But,
We have access to people who do.
oh,
Okay, perfect. So if you can get that to
I
Dr.
will.
Crandall?
Yes.
That would be appreciated.
Yeah, we just have to
Maybe I
make
should pass
sure,
this along to you.
it's important to know where everybody's
Right.
Yeah.
boundaries
Yeah,
are.
we don't want all of a sudden, oh, by the way, we built
Right.
this.
Or
Yeah,
if
maybe we do
you're
because
not
everybody
meeting the
sees ours.
setback.
Yeah, that we can maybe
The
see
ability
the
to make
size.
sure it's a large enough pole building that we can put.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So,
So that's what,
that's what that's on.
that's what this is about. Deb brought up this concern, and then she also brought up the fact that she knows somebody that has that information, so.
So there will be no cost to the school to verify where our property lines are, or where some of the property lines are at least.
Yeah, we can get verification from the county as well.
Okay.
We can do that, follow up with that.
Yeah, and will you just give us a follow-up then in
Yes.
October,
Yep.
please? Okay, great. Or it could be,
Or prior.
or it could be prior via email.
Mhm.
That's fine too. All right, 9.13, discuss hire process.
So the board has adopted a hiring process, and as we discussed last time, we did a specific process, which was in line with our hiring process. We did the hiring of our principal. In the meantime, we had multiple positions open, and in some cases, the hiring process was followed, in some cases, it was not. And we're aware of that, and I think I sent out some information to the board specific to that. But I know Mr. Dorr and I had talked about this, and that,
I can speak to it.
we didn't do what we were supposed to do when we get right down to it.
Just so we don't do that going forward. I mean,
Well, I just wanted to say that, we had numerous positions opened, and we were kind of running around. And I made the mistake of getting excited about a couple candidates and not calling board members to be on the committee. And so, that's 100% on me. I mean, so really the 9.13 is, it's all on me, like I just spaced that out in the realm of the last 2 weeks, kinda getting people in different places, and, so I kinda made that mistake, and so going forward, we won't do that. But it was one of those things where I had a committee in the building, and I had called Marie on one occasion, and for many different, we had 4 paras, an elementary teacher, we had the principal, we had, the counselor thing, and we had the English teacher, part-time English teacher, and so, I just wasn't great at following all those letters up, and so, moving forward, we'll make sure that we take a little bit extra time and get that done, so, that's on me, it's my responsibility.
Thank you.
we know you're human, but this board doesn't like to be here.
Well, it's just,
I get it totally.
That's all.
yep, and thank you for taking responsibility for that, but we put a lot of time and effort into that process, and as I said a million times, integrity in the process, integrity in the decision. And so when we have board approved processes like that, we just expect administration to follow those, and then when they're not followed, then you get a board that's not happy.
And it's also
So
goes-
we've communicated, we've made that crystal clear, I think, and so I just wanna mention, we can rest assured that won't happen again. And I get time constraints, but we also have policies in place for a reason, so.
That was really the only part of our process that was missed. I'm gonna tell you that. I mean,
Yeah.
it really was.
Yeah.
I think it was just an honest oversight of
Yep.
her in the process, because otherwise, Mitch and I followed everything that we always do. Just
So
not
we're
very-
really not
So
important.
you really didn't get invited.
And I get it, again.
I understand, I just want you to know, I mean, we just didn't,
Thank
we
you.
didn't like throw questions out in the air or anything. We
Yeah.
still did our
Okay.
packets and people signed off on our list what they thought was the best and all that, so. I have all that if anyone wants to see it.
But then it's the public. I mean, the public needs, it's a trust issue.
It's a trust issue, because unfortunately, I got questioned on our process because it was, because again, as soon as we don't follow the process, they question the integrity of it. And so I got questioned. And so then I look like I've got egg on my face, because when I describe the process and they say that didn't happen, and I say, okay, well, I'll have to go back to my administrators and see what happened. And so that's part of the things I have to answer to those people that are asking me, and that's, that's part of my, why we're talking about this right now, so, okay? Anything else? All right, we're gonna head on to personnel items then, 10.0, to approve resignation of school counselor Stephanie Lundorf.
So moved.
I'll second.
Just to share with the board, it was very helpful to have her processing through a lot of student issues. Actually, she cleaned up some things as well for the start of school year, so it was helpful to have her on board, but that is an area that we still need to fill.
And we'll discuss,
Mhm.
10.5. All right, any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. 10.2, to approve resignation of elementary teacher Jim Lundorf.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Discussion?
Tough situation at the, we had our workshop days, and at the end of the workshop days, it was on.
Yeah.
Took a job in another district. So we're fortunate that we did find an experienced person that we're asking for approval later on in the agenda. All right, yeah.
Yep. Okay, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. 10.3, to approve the hire of high school language arts teacher Tammy Dowling at .31 MA 20/F.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Very fortunate to find Tammy. She comes to us with all the credentials to teach college in the schools.
So
And
that's this
actually,
position, okay.
both classes. She's also, what was the AP?
In English 11, where she actually works some of her contacts, and I think the students will get both the AP test for AP credit and maybe college credit as well through UMD, so she's doing a great job.
I know you guys have been super busy lately, but I personally like when we get the information with the tier and.
Yeah.
It's right
It's
here.
out there.
It's right
Yep, it's right here. Here we have it.
That's always nice to have that stuff in
Yep.
advance. So I can prepare all my questions. Where-
Yeah, she
Here
taught
we go.
college in the school over in, was it Grand Rapids?
Grand Rapids.
Yep, and then was also teaching at the college level? Yep.
Tammy Duck. And just for the sake of curiosity, I'm assuming that means tier 4. I'm trying to learn this tier process.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Right?
She's tier 4 license.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. 10.4, to approve the hire of PK Principal Megan Myers for principal's contract.
I make a motion to approve the hire.
I will second that.
Do you have, do you have a copy of that contract? I know we have those salary levels were
Yes,
in there,
so,
but we don't have that.
In the principal contract,
Yeah.
the way it's written up, actually, it's gonna be prorated based on the number of days, and so it's not, you're not getting the full principal contracts that it's based on, and she knows, she's very aware of this. It's based on the number of days remaining in the school year. And then information about her has been provided, which is very nice of her, and I know Mr. Doerr's been in touch with her this last week. Invited her as well, and hopefully we'll work in her schedule to go to the LIEC meeting next week. She's gonna be jumping in with both feet, and got lots of things on her schedule to get her up to speed and meeting people, so.
Yeah, very excited to have Ms. Myers on board and looking forward to her starting, and I think she'll be a great addition to our team. So very excited for her to be in Cook County. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. 10.5, to discuss school counseling.
Okay, I did send the board an email regarding this, a couple of different options there. So what we have currently is Mr. Doyle, when he introduced one of our teachers today, she's one of our English teachers. She also had the assignment for the courses that we hired Tammy Downing for. And so that now, Tammy was hired for .31, so that really means now that her name's Sam, she has now .31 open. And so, looking at this, to assign, one option is to assign her duties as counselor, and then we hire a .69, we have a 1.0 counselor position, and then FT is the same. We do have a situation also currently in 7th and 8th grade where we have an open kind of group where they're taking shop and they're taking band, and then we have a group that don't have anything, about 17 kids in there or so, or more. And then it's some way, I think halfway through the year, the kids who are taking shop are gonna be in the group that don't do anything, and the group that don't do anything are gonna be over shop.
When you say don't do anything, what is it?
Or it's like study hall.
Like study hall.
At the moment, let me see, yeah, it's study hall. Sounds a lot better, thank you.
I'll even rephrase.
And so we'll,
It just wasn't originally planned that way, that's why.
so, but because we didn't have, any, the way it was scheduled out, there wasn't anybody for that group. And so we have somebody doing overload on that. So there would be, that would be the increase with that option. Another option is to, and hiring somebody at .69, or just say, let's just say .7, will be more difficult rather than hiring somebody at 1.0. And so the thought is to post for 1.0. Within that, they would take that 7th, 8th grade group and do like career readiness, organizational skills, things that, daily living skills, whatever it happens to be. But in that counseling role, a counselor can do that, working on organizational skills and career readiness at the 7th and 8th grade level. And then have 2 groups throughout the year. At the same time, then our English teacher, we could keep them doing some counseling. When I say that, it wouldn't really be counseling. We would have a specific duty for them. It could be in the area of testing, assessment. It could be in the area of something within the campus, monitoring. There are different areas, because the counselor, as you know from hearing past reports from Mr. Hoffman, they have multiple areas, and we could assign one specific duty to Sam in that case. And then we're hiring a 1.0 when we go out to post. We do have that position posted right now. What we had done was Mr. Dorn and I went, well, you know what, we still don't have this college and the schools piece settled. Just so you board knows, Sam and actually, Amanda, both come to us with, yes, their English degrees. They also both have, Amanda taught career readiness for a number of years in 2 different schools. And then Sam did some
College guidance counseling.
college guidance counseling in her history. So it's not like by putting her in there, she's not, oh geez, I've never done anything like this before. So she does have experience in that field. And so when we were discussing, well, let's see if we can get somebody for the real need of our kids, which is that college and the schools in the English area. We were fortunate to have that. But then that left us now, do we hire a full-time counselor, or do we do a part-time person and using our current staff as a part-time staff? We have plenty of need for counseling.
Sure.
At the same time, so now we look at, all right, so this would be asking the board to increase FTE by 0.31. And Lori and I have been working, actually I asked Lori, and she's been putting it together and been updating it constantly with the changes in staff. We are seeing savings. And so we would definitely be able to cover this increase in FTE at the same time, still see a savings.
Okay, 'cause it's not in our budget, obviously. This wasn't in the budget, so then
Right.
this
That's why it's been-
affects our budget, even though it's covered, but
Mhm.
still. It just, when I hear you describe it, I'm sorry, and you sent me an email, it is so confusing. When you talk about people doing bits and pieces, I guess if it all works out, but in my mind, it would make sense. In the end, we need a full-time counselor. We talked about it. So in the end, I think it's great, we should have a full-time counselor. That's my thought. And of course, I do think it's important to offer these CITS, College in the Schools, and these AP courses. But I did ask when this discussion, I asked like how many students on average were in it, what does it cost the district? You know, these are opportunities we wanna make sure we have for our kids, but also we have to make sure that we can offer those financially. So it sounds like we do have a good average number of students in those classes. There is a cost that we pay
Mhm.
for the College and the Schools, you know, we pay for that for our kids.
By offering college in the schools, we
Yeah.
keep our kids here versus
Yeah. Them leaving.
going online, PSEO, which in some cases we may lose the whole child if they go somewhere, actually go to college.
Mhm.
That's PSEO,
Mhm.
PSEO full-time. Post-secondary education opportunities, PSEO.
Do you want me to break the schedule down for you a little bit? I can do it pretty easy.
Well, and maybe I'm the only one that having a hard time grasping
it's
all of
No,
these.
the thing with the schedule, I mean, it's whatever, I mean, I trust that you,
Yeah,
but we as a community, as school board, as administration faculty, the structure that we wanted, 2 principals, part-time superintendent, counselor, social worker. Full-time counselor, not a part-time one,
Mhm.
full-time, and keeping it all in one person. I think there's great value in that, and that's what, you know, what's the point of having all these public meetings and asking for input and then go, it's just a little too hard. We're not gonna do it this time around, so.
well, and I just wonder, are we doing this, are we kind of Band-Aiding this all together because we didn't have an applicant for our full-time counselor left? So are we kind of doing these Band-Aid, like, we're gonna have you teach this and teach that to kind of make it all work? And in a perfect world, if we just hired a full-time counselor, we wouldn't have to mess around, or it's because our English teacher doesn't have the qualifications to do that class. So
That's what's right.
we have to kind of, mash some things together, I guess. I don't know
We
how
have
to
to be
just
creative.
describe it.
So, when it started, when Ms. Savoy came in, she couldn't teach college in the schools. I called UMD and tried to get a waiver for that. That was denied. It's like, no, doesn't have the experience, so.
Nor could Amanda Beal.
So we knew Tammy Dowling through some other teachers had the experience. We brought her in. She only wanted to teach part-time, was a perfect fit. Dr. Crandall and I also knew that Amanda and Samantha both had guidance counselor experience. So to be honest with you, the most challenging part for us, especially for me on the ground, the first month has not been necessarily that we had a vacancy in the principal. It was that we had a vacancy in the counseling, because you're filling all these schedules and the student's like, I need my schedule changed, I need my schedule changed, I wanna do this, I wanna do this. And so you have, and I'm not exaggerating, you have over 200
Oh, yeah.
changes of some sort. And so I was processing half of those or a little more. And so we knew Samantha had that skill set. And so we were like, well, if we bring Tammy in and she takes this piece, then basically Samantha teaches the 2 morning classes one day, and then she's the counselor the rest of the day, and then the next day she's the counselor in the morning, and then she teaches the 2 afternoon courses. We could hire right now 2 more counselors that counsel, and they'd be busy all the time. So for us to go for this full-time, granted it's not the perfect scenario because of the situation at the beginning of the year, we'll easily be busy, very easily.
So have we had applicants for full-time counselor that?
I know we have one for sure.
We have 2 that don't necessarily fit the traditional requirements, and then I just talked to a gentleman the day before yesterday that seems kind of promising, and like someone noticed before, there's no phones in the BWCA, so I'm waiting for 2 days for that person to get out of the boundary. So.
And so it is an open posting now, like it is open, it's posted right now, and so that's, and again, of course, this is the bad time of year to be doing this. This is a hard time of year to do any of these hires, and so, I don't know, what do you guys?
I guess my thought is
Yeah.
if you're, and is it Amanda that's doing kind of both?
Same.
So,
Confusing.
So if we have this person, I'll just,
This,
person
say A.
A, doing this right now, and if we hire a full-time counselor, what happens is person A,
What's happening right now is they're not getting a prep or duty, and so they would get
They're
that back.
overload.
They're on
overload.
They're on an overload, so
on
really.
overload right now.
Yeah.
Okay,
Are they comfortable doing the overload right now, and do they know that we are posted and looking for a full-time
yes,
person?
they've been communicated that the overloads are temporary and that we're looking, and that if we find somebody, they'll go back to a normal 1.0.
okay.
So, it sounds like some of the board, I mean, we wanted a full-time counselor, so we should continue to look for the full-time counselor, and in the meantime, leave it to the experts on how to juggle
I agree.
all that stuff.
Sounds like a nightmare.
So we'll cover, and so at some point, Ms. Pam will be connecting with board members, because we do have some applicants, and we'll have some interviews.
Yeah, I think it's.
Do we have very many other part-time teachers that don't, I mean, I don't
We have,
recall, I know we've seen these
our-
things that are, but,
Our choir teacher wanted to work part-time.
Okay.
She retired as a
Yeah.
teacher, and she came back, and, so she just wants to work part-time. She's part-time, Mr. Dash wants to work part-time. Our art teacher, she won't put on there, she just won't put on that position.
Anybody who's part-time wants to,
Yeah.
that's what
I'm
they
trying
want.
to
It's a
think, do we have any other-
that's
There's
my
no
question,
point.
is there, as we're piecing things
Yeah,
together, is there?
preschool teachers part-time, that's what she wants.
Yeah.
But so at the end of this, when we hire a full-time counselor, we will add 0.31 FTE to our overall FTEs.
Correct.
When we hire that full-time
Mhm.
person.
And still at an overall savings.
Savings, because we're lower paying, it's not as much experience,
Mhm.
all that, okay,
And we're not committing to this for other school years, we're committing to this for this school year.
yeah,
Mhm.
Just to clarify.
yeah.
Wonderful.
All right, so we have direction.
Do you have direction? Do
We
you
have
have what you
direction.
need?
And thank you for being creative as you piece these things together.
Well, we appreciate
It's hard to
those-
follow for me, you guys.
We appreciate those that are working outside of what they normally do and doing overloads, because I know that's asking a lot from people too. All right, 10.6 to approve hire elementary teacher Krista Betcher at 1.0 MA 20/F.
So she comes to us with a lot of experience, actually specifically in fifth grade. And that's where she's going to be teaching.
Okay.
Yep, and we have that information.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion?
This is sort of a separate question, but along the line of personnel. We have a new gym teacher too, right? Are we not, is that not on this? Will that be our next meeting to approve though?
Hopefully it'll be at our next meeting. Just to clarify for the rest of the board, our current gym teachers has a short-term sub-license. We have applied for tier 1, and so we can't hire her as a permanent instructor until she has that. And through the process, they changed offices, and so they're doing it through paper, and we check on a daily basis, and we just haven't heard word. I know in my other district, we had applied probably 2 weeks prior, and we just heard on Monday that our teacher received their tier. So hopefully within the next week or so, we should hear that she has that, and then it'll be on the board agenda to approve the hire for her.
It's nice to know what the process is and why some
Yeah,
are. and some
everything's
aren't.
delayed, because it used to be all computer-based, and it was pretty efficient as far as the process through the state to get your tier, well, it's now called tier 1, but at that point it would have been your
Variance.
community expert in this case. And by switching over, we're doing it all by paper. And so it's taking a lot longer.
Why?
That would be a good question for them. But they just haven't established their systems yet.
Well, they haven't, this tier system hasn't even officially been accepted.
They're still
yet
working
or
on the
something, right?
rules.
So it's kind of a convoluted situation.
Got put in the legislation and they did not have the rules established yet, but they're getting further and further along. They had some of the rules accepted back in August.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around this whole thing.
So even though it has nothing to do with, I'm gonna ask another question, cause you guys are asking it too. Why, so we made, did we post for that gym teacher position?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so we, put a long-term sub in there, and then, so we haven't had any applicants, so, okay, so there's no applicant. Ms. Bishop?
She's got her license.
Oh,
She came through. That's hilarious.
There we go.
Hilarious.
I'm
No, that's
sure.
funny.
Thank
Okay, so my question is, so, cause obviously that didn't come to a hiring process, that didn't go through a
Okay.
hiring process, so a long-term sub, we just, did a long-term sub, and so then we have the
We'll have
option
to
of,
interview her.
okay, so that's my,
We actually did, that was one of the ones where I didn't call you.
Oh,
okay, okay.
Sorry. We
It's
had,
fine.
we had, we had
Okay.
whatever.
One applicant, okay. All right. Just, because I was confused on how that process all unfolded, so now that explains it. Okay. Now, back to our motion to approve the hire of elementary teacher, Krista Betcher. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. 10.7, to approve extended nurse office hours.
Motion to approve.
I'll second that.
all right, so we looked at, when I say we, myself, Ms. Backlund, and our nurse Allison Heron, we're looking at the nurse's office. When it got down to it, the concern was that we don't have full coverage, and we had some incidents last year where she stayed. You know, it was, we have some students who are diabetic, we have some students who are some allergy issues. And then there are other medical needs as well that we have in our student population. And so she approached me at the end of last year asking, you know, myself, Dr. DeWitt, looking to see, her goal was to provide better service for our student population. She has some requirements just for her, and I know, board member Shirley and I had some emails back and forth, but, in the proposals that she's provided, she still is meeting what her goal is as far as working as a school nurse. And the proposal, would be for her to do 3 days a week and an LPN. So she would still be our school nurse, and then have an LPN on the other 2 days. The piece that, on the positive side of that type of structure is that if she's gonna go on vacation, where she has in the past, we already have the person, as long as schedules work out, we've got the built-in person, which is great, and then vice versa. If the LPN has vacation or sick, we have the built-in sub. And that would be the scenario that we thought would be the best one, and I shared with you as far as the increases, cost-wise, yes, there is an increase in cost. There was a much larger increase in cost if we just changed her overall hours and had her work 7.5 hours a day for all the student days, plus additional days at the beginning and the end of the year. Close up at the end, and obviously we get medical plans going at the end of the year. And so this is the plan that I'm bringing to the board, asking for your support to. Right now, she's operating on the same as last year. I'm not sure, I haven't connected with her to see if there's any days at this point, I think there might have been one, that she had to stay a little longer.
Does she prefer the part-time schedule option, or does she
Yes.
as an employee want more? I mean, the same question I was asking earlier.
No,
Like,
she
do these people want
prefers-
part-time, do they want a full-time job, what are
prefers-
they looking for?
If you don't recall, in her contract, her first year contract, there was a couple of different blocks that she actually was just gone, and so we had a sub. That still is present in her contract, and then this change is that we would have somebody already built into the system to cover for that time.
Even though this is on here, we don't have to approve this tonight.
No, this is the first time you've seen it.
This is because we got this information, so we don't have to approve this. So if people want more time, to think about this, that is our option, of course. And, we can, decide to postpone for another time if we'd like, or if people feel like they wanna take action, we certainly can.
Well, I think it's important to have extended office hours in light of medical needs of our students.
This wasn't in our budget.
Correct.
This is also an add to our budget, and so I just wanna make sure that we, whenever we make an ad, we always kick ourselves in the spring. You gotta look back, and so I just wanna make sure, yep, I understand, I always wanna do everything we can for our students, but we also have to make sure that we consider everything that's involved in that, and money is part of that. And so, that's my only thought is I wasn't super excited to take action on this, just because I wanted some time to think about it. And,
What do we do
You know.
now if at 3 o'clock in the afternoon somebody has a seizure?
And she's not here,
Yeah.
call 911.
We've had a couple of, sorry, I just feel like I gotta, just so if you don't, we've got a lot of nut allergies. We've got a lot of diabetic kids. We have over 6 or 7 kids with EpiPens. So like last year we had a diabetic reaction, it was about 255.
She happened to be, was that the day she was here?
No.
There was one where she was around, she happened to be around.
No, I was in the office and I might have had a Coke with me. And we got the kids some Coca-Cola and then called mom and got her up there and got her to the hospital. But I will just say from my viewpoint, it's a little scary when you have those kind of things that you're dealing with and you're not, you're trained to react to certain things and you're trained to, but then when it happens, it's not your background, right? You're not. So, just as you consider, think about some of those scenarios and maybe there are other ways to do it, but it is really nice when Allison's on the spot. She's amazing, so.
And my opinion, the cost is an additional $1,500 to $3,000 for the option 1 that you guys are recommending.
Or not. Yep, that's option 1, and not option 2 is 9,000.
But to me, option 2 is off the table if that's not what anybody wants in the situation.
Right.
If Ms. Heron's not interested in it, what's the point of pursuing that? I'd feel differently if she had a strong desire for more hours, possibly, discussing that further. But to meet the needs of our students at a cost of $1,500 to $3,000, when you're talking about severe medical issues, I don't think that you can. It's kind of like when I was on the fire department, and anything that's a life-saving thing is more expensive, but people are willing to pay it because that one incident where things go awry, I'd happily pay $1,500 to $3,000 out of my own pocket for my own kid for something like that. And it seems maybe not appropriate
I agree
to
with
not
you, Carrie.
consider that to be a important thing.
I agree, in light of, we still have to look at the big picture of our budget and stuff, and in light of what's happened this year, and we are under budget on some other things,
Yes.
other salaries and things, I think we could afford to do this now, and then next year, when we do budgets.
Discuss it. When you're not here.
When I'm not here, when you guys do budgets.
Thanks.
You'll just have to make sure that this is part of it, and you
Yeah.
have to figure out, but for now, and for what we've heard tonight from Lori and Dr. Crandall.
Yeah, what price we put on
It's-
the
it's a-
well-being of a child.
Yeah, and I mean, it's really,
I mean, like,
when you're talking about it,
critically-
it's just that one incident, but.
Not a Band-Aid we're talking about.
Yeah.
Nope, I agree.
And one incident that goes awry, I mean, does that, I don't know the answer to this question, but is that, do you involve the legal team and ask, like, one crazy incident that goes awry, what's the additional cost to our district
Oh,
for,
that could be,
for that, you know? I'm sure it's more than this.
No specific answer.
Well, just to kind of flesh out just purely about the money, like, are we gonna spend it here, are we gonna spend it there? In the event that we don't have coverage and we have to reach out to 911 or whoever, do we end up bearing any of that cost? Okay,
I don't
Alright.
think so.
okay.
The unfortunate thing is that it could go on, so that you as a parent and it's your child,
There you
and
go.
the ambulance picked your child up,
Yep.
that's where the cost is gonna come.
Yep,
When it could have been, who knows it.
right. I mean, in
And
some
can't
cases, the nurse is gonna call 911.
Right.
Oh, yeah,
You know, they're not
exactly.
like the savior of everything.
No, but
they're at
they,
least
they know,
equipped to be able
they
to-
know the medical background
Yeah.
typically of the child, and they know that it's, all we need to do is if we got 30 seconds.
Yeah.
For sure.
You know, whatever it happens to be, in many situations, they know that, oh no, this is typical. This is what they always look like right away, and if we wait about 30 seconds, you're gonna see color back in their face, for example.
So I'm all for approving this tonight, personally. And since we have a surplus, it makes it easier to make that decision too. Now, do we have like kind of a running tally? Because at one point we had a surplus, and then as we do more things, that's gonna
You
go
lose
away.
that,
But
yeah.
are we like keeping track of that sort of in real time? So as these questions come across the table, we could be like, okay, well,
We're
what,
about
are we still in
22,000.
a surplus or whatever, you know?
Or
It was
is-
about 22,000, 23? She's not feeling it.
She didn't hear you.
Should be another. Oh, what is the increase? I was thinking that .31 was just under 20,000.
So that spreadsheet you and I have been going back
Mhm.
and forth with, that's all in there already. And it was, you know, enough to cover this position left over and a new counselor in a reasonable rate, you know.
So yeah, they do have a running total.
I do, I have a spreadsheet, and I, you know.
They do have a spreadsheet, so there you
When
go.
somebody leaves the district at MA plus 20, J, K, or I, and we hire people at MA,
Think of the
you know,
fire
it's-
position, for
The
example.
salary schedule.
and the salary schedule, it's, you know, and I've been keeping that running total on the people who left versus who we brought.
Sure.
Thank you for doing that, Lori and Dr. Crandall.
Mhm.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. I need, okay, so we didn't tell you specifically, option one, did you get that?
I got that, yeah.
That wasn't part of the motion,
Really?
though, so that was open-ended, so option one, you
Okay.
clearly, okay. So at 7:25, I need a motion to adjourn. If that's, if you had, did you have anything? I usually
I
ask you.
can make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say nay. Motion carries, we are adjourned. Thank you for coming, everyone.